Hey everybody, today we're going to be looking at a worker placement game where you will command an army of minions as you build up a space station. And you'll also be building up your minions in a quest for coins and points and cheeseburgers with a lot of tentacles and claws and extra brains. It's Chimera Station from Tasty Minstrel Games. In Chimera Station, you will be commanding, as I said, your little army of worker minions, and you will be sending them to spaces all over the board in order to either generate resources or convert resources from one to the other, and ultimately to generate points. And the best way of generating points is to add modules to the space station, which has the knock-on effect of giving you more places potentially to send minions, which is really cool. But your minions start out kind of dinky, and these little guys can't do too much. But fortunately, we've got genetic splicing to fix that. So, let's say this is one of your workers, right? Little dude, not great at much, but here's what you start with. These are some of the basic starting worker placement spaces that you'll find before you start building out the rest of the station. And when you send one of your workers to these spaces, you're going to put them there, and they will either generate some resources. For instance, the hydroponics bay will let you generate some burgers, space burgers. I think they're space burgers. They're green. Or you can send them to the refinery, which will let you generate some cash, which you'll need to use at the various places to get other sorts of resources. Like, for instance, here at the claw shop, if you were to send somebody there, you could spend some coins to get some claws. If you sent someone to any of the other sort of genetic spots that are basic, you might get some tentacles, or an extra brain, or some leaves. Now, remember how I keep kind of making fun of these little dudes and how useless they are? Well, here's how we fix that.
So, let's say you want to make your minion a little more useful. Maybe grab some extra resources. Well, a quick trip to the splicing lab, and we can give him some tentacles. But maybe we want to get some extra points with those resources. Well, some brains might help with that. Pop one of these on, and your minion is much more useful now.
So each of these genetic components that you might get does something slightly different when attached to one of your workers. The tentacles, as Jess said, grab extra resources every time resources get generated. The leaves are a source of nourishment and will reduce the cost of burgers that it takes to feed your workforce. The claws are excellent at displacing opponent workers from spaces that you might want to occupy yourself, and the brains are a source of bonus points for lots of the modules where you send your workers. And by genetically altering your workforce, you can create the ideal worker for any situation. Now, all this worker placement is about building your station and earning points for doing so. Down here in the reactor are the modules that the station is to be built from. This will sort of get refilled over the course of the game. And when you buy a module to place in the station, you'll pay its cost, assign a worker to it, and add it to the ever-growing group of modules that define the station. Over the course of the game, as more and more spaces get added, these represent new action spaces that players can take, and you also gain bonuses depending on what you cover up when you place your modules. And so over the course of the game, this board is going to fill up, and there are going to be more and more opportunities for you to place your workers. Every placement has the potential to earn you some points or some extra resources, and Chimera Station is a very tight game. You're only going to play 5 turns, which are tracked here, and with the exception of getting some perks that represent player-specific spaces or potentially endgame scoring opportunities, really you have a limited set of decisions to begin with, and then an ever-expanding tableau of options over the course of the game. 5 rounds later, whoever has the most points is the winner. And that's Chimera Station. What do you think?
I like it. When I first took a look at it, I was a little worried that, these are kind of gimmicky almost.
Yeah, I had the same worry.
But they actually really work quite well.
Yeah, sort of kidding around about, wrenching them apart aside, these worker components are really, really functional, and as long as you kind of stand them on the table, you can socket them together pretty easily.
It's also really satisfying to be able to change out your worker on the fly. It's like we can add things that get us more points, or add things that get us more resources when we need them.
Yeah, if you're the type of player who you don't want to worry about your throughput for hamburgers, which is a surreal sentence.
Hey, hamburgers are awesome.
Then I agree. Then stack a couple of those leaf genetic components into your workers, and you won't have to feed them. If like you said, if you're the kind of player who just wants to be able to knock people out of the way, then add some claws, and you will get whatever you want, because who can argue? And so, as you said, from a physical design perspective, they look a little toyish, a little bit, because they're plastic, and they're pretty sturdy, but they have to be, because they're constantly going to be taken apart and put back together.
And it's kind of fun having these big monsters running around.
Yeah, and they start out as these little itty bitty dudes, and they turn into these considerably more substantial pieces. But that's one of the things about Chimera Station that I came around to, because when I say you go from this to that, the game's only 5 rounds.
Yeah.
You only get 5 rounds of placements, and and it's very tight. And depending on player count, you start with more or less workers to begin with. And what's interesting is your first turn is going to go by, and you're going to be like, okay, I get 2 burgers because I need them because I got to feed everybody, and I'll get some coins. That's my first. The first round, And you're like, that's only going to be. I'm only going to have 4 more opportunities.
But it starts building on itself.
Absolutely. This is the kind of game that Josh loves, because it's the kind of game that builds on itself. It starts out with pretty modest options, and then as your workers get bigger and as more spaces get added to the station itself, it gets awesome. You get these big later turns. So on the whole, the sort of ramping up nature makes what starts out as a very simple to wrap your brain around game quickly grows. Right?
Yeah, there's a lot more strategy here than I was expecting.
Right, because it says, the box says 60 to 90 minutes, and generally speaking, we're fast when we play, because we disdain thinking for strategy purposes. we like doing things.
But like you said, that first turn doesn't feel like much, and so you think, oh, it's going to go so fast.
It's going to be a 15 to 20 minute game,
But then as it builds, you start having these little engines that you're starting up.
Yeah, you build, each player has their own lab track that they're working on, and as they ramp up through that, they're going to get different bonuses. You might get, pick up perks that are going to give you unique abilities for just yourself, and you have that knock-on benefit of other players adding modules to the station.
Yeah.
They're going to get points, but now there's more places to go, and it might open up strategies, because these basic placement spaces, well, they're
okay.
They're very limited. They're not going to form the core of a cool engine loop.
Yeah.
But the advanced spaces, and we only have a couple. There's 40 tiles or something. So
once it's all built out, there's a lot you can do.
And it's a generous game in that regard. You kind of get a little something for everything. When you place a module, whatever you cover, you pick up something from it. When you place the worker, you're going to get something, and if you have the right augments, the right genetic splicing, you're going to get even more. A spot that gives you a resource, a spot that lets you buy a splice, If you are spliced, you can instead now treat the place where you buy tentacles as a place where you send your tentacle workers to get hamburgers. It's just, the options open up as the game sort of rolls on, and I think that's super, super, super cool.
Still don't really get the hamburger thing, but...
How else are you going to feed a workforce? How else are you going to feed the people who are hard lit? How else are you going to feed brain tentacle red guy?
Tacos.
Oh man, a taco expansion to this game?
There you go.
Space tacos, like green tacos? That'd be really cool. The production value is really great.
Yeah.
Artwork's fantastic. These guys,
They're smart. They're fun.
Well, they're only smart if you put brains in them.
True.
But everything about it, the currency are all different sizes as well as denoted.
And it's a nice thickness, so you really feel like you got something.
Yeah.
You got a handful of those.
Component quality is really good, and by and large, this is just a good game. You know, this is a good twist on a worker placement. It is a worker building game.
Yeah.
Right? We're very used to games where the board is modular, but the idea of the workers themselves being modular, that's unique and cool and really a lot of fun.
But yeah, I really enjoyed the game.
Yeah, me too. I think if you're a fan of worker placement, it's absolutely something to check out because it does something unique.
Yeah.
You know, it does something
definitely different.
Yeah, and it feels fresh and engaging. And I'll tell you, if it was an 8-turn game or an 8-round game or had some different sort of game game over mechanism or whatever, I think it is I think it's tuned perfectly. I think it sticks around just as long as it needs to. I agree with you. I think this one's definitely what.
You can also make them fight.
It's true. It's true. You can sit there and make them fight. Or if you're made of entirely leaves, you can make like a
leaf.
No. No. Anyway, okay. So ultimately, we had a really great time with Chimera Station, and we think it's totally worth checking out.
Yeah. I'm Jess. This is Andrew. And we'll see you next game.
It's a little awkward.
It was!
Thanks for watching. If you want to see a few of our full-length reviews, go ahead and click on that playlist over there. If you want to watch some Game in a Minute, click on that playlist over there. And if you'd like to hang out with us and follow along with our antics, click this G. It's around here somewhere.
Here? Yeah.
I don't...
you're
the one who does...
Wait, I don't do these.
I don't do them.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.